welcome to America Unhinged. I'm Francesca Fiorentini.
And I'm Wajahat, and this is a show that looks at the first 100 days of the Trump administration.
Do we still have to do this? Is this...
Only been 2 weeks, folks. Only been 2 weeks.
Oh my God. The number of years off my life I've lost.
I don't even smoke, but...
Smoke if you got him. Today, obviously, we will be talking about the Musk takeover of the U.S. government, from the Treasury Department to USAID, and what the pushback has been, if any, from Democrats in the Senate and just in Congress overall. And then we're going to have, of course, a moment of hope. Don't worry, there's hope. And as always, Waj, we have a Reek of the Week.
We have a Reek of the Week, and we will give you micro doses of hope. But first, everyone, please like, subscribe, share, be a super chatter, a super donor. Every tip goes a long way. Donate if you can to Zeteo.
We take kidneys.
We are independent media. We also take compliments. We'll take reshares on every social media platform, preferably the ones that aren't run by people who are fans of Nazis. But this is independent media. We need your help. Thank you again for joining us. It's a brand new show. Click that bell and you will always be notified when we go live, just like we are right now. But before we get to our new overlord, a racist South African billionaire, we have to talk about some other racists. Today, some deeply troubling comments out of President Donald Trump. It pains me to say that, but he is the president. And he met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to talk about the future of Gaza. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, we know since last November, Israel has engaged in what some people call a conflict with Gaza, what Amnesty says is a genocide in which at least 45,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed, mostly civilians. That number could be as high as to 70,000, according to Lancet. We know that churches have been razed. There's no more schools left. Journalists have been killed. Humanitarian aid has been withheld. We know that there's been violence in the West Bank, and it's human misery. But today, we thought maybe, Francesca, maybe there would be some hope, because last time I checked, Donald Trump was America first. So let's see what he said about the future of Gaza, shall we?
Gaza maybe is a demolition site right now. If you look at Gaza, there's hardly a building standing, and the ones that are going to collapse. You can't live in Gaza right now, and I think we need another location. I think it should be a location that's going to make people happy. You look over the decades, it's all death in Gaza. This has been happening for years. It's all death. If we can get a beautiful area to resettle people permanently in nice homes and where they can be happy and not be shot, not be killed, not be knifed to death like what's happening in Gaza.
Okay.
How about Palestine? How about the West Bank and Gaza in East Jerusalem and not occupied? Just a thought.
It is. There's so many wild statements in that whole thing. The idea that you can't live in Gaza, nobody lives in Gaza, except for 1.8 million people live there. The conditions are awful. Maybe up to 70,000, as you mentioned, have been killed, to say nothing of those who have been injured, permanently maimed, who are facing extreme hunger, on and on and on, who are giving birth in insanely unsafe conditions, those who struggle for their lives. But, since the ceasefire was announced a day before Trump was inaugurated, it has largely held, although there has been an expansion, as you mentioned, of violence on Israel's side in the West Bank. But Gazans are going home. This is their home. If your home was razed to the ground by a foreign power, it wouldn't cease to be your home. And if anything, I think Palestinians have proven for generations now that the more you try to erase them, the more they remember, hey, yeah, this is my home and my people, and I would like to stay here and live here. But so he is casually talking about ethnic cleansing, about forcible removal, about genocide.
Francesca, but he doesn't mention the actor responsible for this death and destruction.
This is the other part.
Oftentimes the case in U.S.
media. You can't live there.
Somehow Palestinian children just get shot magically in the legs and in the head, and somehow
it's very unsafe.
Why is it so unsafe? What's happening?
Don't you think schools are unsafe, Mr. Mass Shooter, sir? He's got BB right there, and he's like, it's just uninhabitable. If someone would stop bombing, if only.
I wonder who did this. But then he gives a solution about what will happen to Gaza. Let's play this clip because it got worse. Here's the clip, folks. Hold on.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
So, Waj, I just want to explain that, like, only hours before, maybe a couple hours before, when we saw that first clip where Trump is saying, you can't go back, there's nothing there anymore. He was also saying, my hope is that Gazans can be moved elsewhere, maybe in multiple sites. We know that Israel has been looking at the Sinai Desert as a place to basically, build mass refugee camps for Gazans. And he went on to say maybe it would be Egypt that would help, other countries, Jordan, and countries that have historically taken in massive amounts of, Palestinian refugees anyway. But only a couple hours later, the United States will take control of Gaza. Waj, are you ready for another occupation of a country in the Middle East?
Well, last time I heard, Trump was America first. So he's already bombing ISIS, which he allegedly destroyed. He did not. And now the United States is going to take over Gaza. That's going to cost a lot of money. I'm sure it's going to also cost U.S. troops, and also is going to put a target on the United States from extremist groups who are probably really pissed off that the United States was complicit in this genocide, not my words, Amnesty International's words, of Gazans, Palestinians in Gaza. Again, 45,000 people that died, but could be up to 70,000. And maybe Jared Kushner will get his beachfront properties. But in all seriousness, folks, what this is that when you forcibly move a population from their homeland and push them out, that is called ethnic cleansing. And that is a part and parcel definition of genocide. And so what Donald Trump today said is that he will be complicit in the genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza. And these Palestinian people, their home is Gaza. They do not want to go to Egypt. They do not want to go to Jordan. It is not the Egyptians' responsibility. It is not Jordan's responsibility. It is Israel's responsibility as the occupying power to, number one, stop occupying Palestinians, and number two, stop the humanitarian crisis. What Palestinians want is homeland, freedom, and self-determination. We need an entire show to talk about this, Francesca, but
yeah, we do.
The last
before we move,
Elon Musk.
Yeah, let's move to that, but I quickly want to shout out Pondering Politics and thank you for your super chat saying, I've been assured that there's a dove populism within MAGA that will push and punish Trump for such cruel war hawkishness. Waj, Fran, will MAGA speak up or fall in line? I mean, I don't know if I'm just reading into the sarcasm. Sadly, Pondering...
That's sarcasm. That's Josiah being sarcastic. But, he has a really good point here. And I was mentioning this to Francesca before, because there is a schism for the first time in our life within the Republican Party. This America First thing, by the way, Tucker Carlson, not a fan of Israel, probably also not a fan of Jews, does not want U.S., probably not a fan, does not want U.S. money going to Israel. Another fan, a person who's not a fan of the Jews and also not Israel, Candace Owens. So this is going to cause a schism when Donald Trump says America first, but we're going to take over control of Gaza. How do you think this is going to play out, Francesca, within MAGA?
I mean, it's also just so insane that we would, and this is the other thing that Israel has been, and honestly, the US government has been avoiding answering for months now, which is who would assist in the rebuilding. No matter, my opinion is that it should, obviously, Gaza belongs to Gazans and the Palestinian people. But the question is, who would rebuild this? And Israel's always said somebody else. So if the idea that the United States is simultaneously sending 2,000-pound bombs and selling and sending tons of weaponry, but then also is financially on the hook for rebuilding and governing a place that should be sovereign is just, again, the U.S. empire, never, always wasteful. always finding moments to waste a lot of taxpayer money.
This is why, thankfully, we have DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, run
Right.
by private citizen and special government employee Elon Musk, because he's up to task to cut this wasteful spending, except, of course, when it comes to government spending in the military industrial complex, or when it comes to these contracts. And let's not forget that he also receives government subsidies for Starlink. But don't you worry, the richest man on earth now is in control. All hail President Musk, the richest man, an immigrant from South Africa who seems to be an aficionado for Nazi salutes. Oh, I'm sorry, Roman salutes, who seems to be engaging Francesca in an administrative coup with his 6 minions, thanks to Wired, fantastic article. They named the 6 minions these 19 to 25-year-old bros who are helping Elon Musk and DOGE cut back on wasteful spending. And the way they're doing it is, first and foremost, Elon Musk will spend his money to buy the presidency. Apparently, it only took about $300 million for Elon Musk to get type of unprecedented control that we have never seen any private citizen have in the United States of America. And before he did that, of course, he spent about $44 billion taking over Twitter, which he has now used to platform Nazis and white supremacists and misinformation.
Can I just stop you right there and point out that it cost more money to buy Twitter than it did the American government, which is what Republicans, because let's be real, it's not just Trump, it's all Republicans, are effectively allowing him to do right now. And that is, God, I thought democracy was slightly more expensive. You know, I feel like we really had something there for a little bit. We'll get into exactly what he is doing, but
I feel
obviously,
like if all of us got together our quarters and our nickels, we could have done like 292 million.
I know.
Like we're parents. I thought about this and I really said, okay, if you're the richest man on earth, which Elon Musk is, thanks to also government subsidies, your taxpayer dollars, and you had billions upon billions of dollars, spending 290 million bucks, folks, that's like taking my kids to like the dollar store and spending $20. That's like 20 bucks
like
at the dollar store.
Have at it, kids, do whatever you want. And they were like, actually, we want to tear down the dollar store and hollow it out and fire all the employees. And you're like, oh my God, kids, geez, I didn't know you were libertarians. Is that what?
I think they were Silicon Valley, bro. They're like, we want to come in and break stuff down and rebuild, bro. We're like, what?
How did I saying bro all the time?
But listen, this is dangerous stuff because last Friday, folks, the DOGE team, yes, these 6 basically young bros ages 19 to 25 who are part of the DOGE team went to the Treasury and said, hey, let us in. And we had this individual that you've been warning about, Francesca, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who was confirmed, by the way, thank you, Democrats, who on Friday granted Elon Musk and his DOGE team, yes, these 6 young bucks ages 19 to 25, full access to the Treasury's massive federal payment system. So now he has access to, by the way, your Social Security information. He has access to tax refunds. He has access to the Treasury's entire financial documents. And the people who tried to step up and stop him, top civil servant, David Lebrick at the Treasury Department, guess what happened to him?
R.I.P.
He was ousted, and then he was put on leave, and then, wait for it, suddenly retired on Friday after the dispute, according to people familiar with his exit. Now, in all seriousness, folks, Elon Musk is a private citizen. Yes, a special government employee, but last time I checked, he does not have actually a federal government badge, right? He has not been confirmed by the Senate. He is still a private citizen who has come in, bum rushed the Treasury Department, and now these kids, ages 19 to 25, have access to our financial data. Not just our financial data, folks, but they have access to the funding, and they can actually halt payments to some pretty important programs, Francesca.
Yeah. And the reason,
Meals on Wheels, Head Start, all of these programs, by the way, are targeted by DOGE to cut wasteful spending. But you know what was not targeted? The military industrial complex and government spending to Starlink.
Of course not. No, BB's here visiting the United States to just make sure the spigot stays on. But, you know, impoverished seniors who want 3 square meals a day, please get in line. And the reason I think Scott Bessent's confirmation is really important is that this was someone who wasn't seen as an extremist. He's not RFK Jr. and he is also not, the architect like Russell Vogt of Project 2025. He
Right.
seemed like just kind of a normal Trump crony. But there are no normal Trump cronies in this Heritage Foundation, reality that we live in. They are all at the service of trying to hollow the government out from the inside and allowing the richest man on earth to, again, do that through these, 6 engineers or whatever. And so the fact that 15 Democratic senators, Cory Booker included, Kirsten Gillibrand included, voted for Scott Bessent's confirmation is a massive, massive red flag that we do not have the kind of resistance in the Senate that we need to stop this cabinet from effectively giving Musk and his allies the keys to the castle.
And speaking about the castle, something that people don't know, we've talked about, he has access to your social security numbers. He has access to Medicaid, which he wants to, of course, chop up to pay for the tax cuts for the rich.
Yep.
He could also access something, Francesca, called the, quote, do not pay system that lists individuals or contractors the government has blacklisted. So theoretically, he now has control over whom the government can do business with. He could also, wait for it, punish his rivals. Why? Because Elon Musk gets government subsidies for Starlink. So imagine if you're a competitor, he could ice you out. Suppose you're a friend, he could add a few zeros. Suppose you've pissed him off, he could take away a few zeros. Elon Musk, a private citizen with his 6 DOGE buddies who are bros ages 19 to 25, now have access to this financial data. And these individuals who were voted in by Democrats just rolled over like dogs and punished the people who actually stepped up. Now, speaking about rolling over like a dog, you would think President Trump would say something, right? But no, he's happy being a cuck. This is what he said.
Why is it important for Elon Musk to have access to the payment systems at Treasury?
Well, he's got access only to letting people go that he thinks are no good if we agree with him. And it's only if we agree with him. He's a very talented guy from the standpoint of management and costs.
Yeah, I think former Twitter employees would beg to differ if he's talented in management. I think Tesla workers and SpaceX workers would beg to differ. There have been massive reports about how much he's mismanaged those companies. And look at Twitter. He hollowed it out. And look, now we're just getting nothing but DraftKings ads, and it is a place for Holocaust memes. But Waj, I want to go more specific because it's not just about Musk and his personal business interests in terms of SpaceX, people like the FAA head that you mentioned earlier that he hates, but it's also giving these folks access to data and allowing them to kind of just delete payment plans and payments to federal workers depending on who they are. So one of the things that the aides were given access to was the Office of Personnel Management's Enterprise Human Resource Integration System, which contained in it our social security numbers, dates of birth, salaries, home addresses, and job descriptions of all civil government workers, along with any disciplinary actions they've faced. But they look at the descriptions to remove people. And one of the OPM staffers said of Musk's team, quote, "This is how they found all these DEI offices and had them removed by reviewing position description level data." So whether that's how they were hired, whether it was under a diversity and equity and inclusion program, which if you missed our last show, we talked a lot about, and you can go back and watch, please. But it's you could even, like, I imagine this even being, this person has a name that sounds like a brown name. Like, yes. They must be here because of DEI. I'm going to delete them as a federal worker. I'm going to make sure they don't get their next payment. I mean, and the lack of oversight, right? And of course, Elon Musk says personally, no, the DOGE team discovered, among other things, that payment approval officers at Treasury were instructed always to approve payments, even to known fraudulent or terrorist groups. They literally never denied a payment in their entire career, not even once. Okay, leave aside.
I believe him. Don't you believe him?
So you're saying the federal government made good on its contracts and paid its workers on time? Heaven forbid. Like, this is insane.
But Donald Trump doesn't like that, because Donald Trump, as we know, is notorious for stiffing people, and so is Elon Musk. But listen, let's just cut through all the bullshit. And on this show, I think the people who have stayed with us, the people who have come and supported us. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. Hopefully you appreciate that. We're going to give it to you straight. This is a coup. This is an administrative coup. This is a purge. This is the world's richest man using $300 million as a quid pro quo to get access to our information so he can deregulate, so he can make money for himself and his broligarchy billionaire friends, the South African freaking apartheid Clydes. It's not just him. It's also David Sachs, also Peter Thiel. Let's not forget that Peter Thiel was the one who groomed J.D. Vance, helped him make his money in Wall Street, right? These are all the billionaires, the 1% of the 1%, who are coming after your Medicaid, who are coming after your Social Security, who are coming after any organization like the SEC or any organization that can hold them responsible, or as Francesca said, accountable, gutting them thoroughly. And Donald Trump is an old man about to turn 79. He seems to have lacked the stamina and is just rolling over for Elon Musk, who's coming in. And someone just said that in the comment section. How old were they again, Waj? 19 to 25 years old. The Wired did a fantastic piece. The DOGE team is 6 bros. Some of them are in college who are ages 19 to 25 who now have access to your personal information, and he will use this to punish his critics, to go after, wait for it, diversity. And everyone, Black History Month, congratulations. Let's celebrate it. Let's honor it. During Black History Month, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, has ordered all identity group celebrations to be shut down.
Yeah, including, I mean, we're talking about MLK Jr. Day. We're also talking about Holocaust Remembrance Day. So I also think it's really fitting. Some of the groups that were calling Palestine protesters anti-Semites are not loudly screaming at the top of their lungs that this government wants to obliterate Holocaust Remembrance Day just as a day. It's not a holiday, just a remembrance. Nope, we don't have it anymore in the federal government. So I'll wait. But Waj, to your point, it's funny. Even if you name the 6 engineers, like Wired magazine did, Elon Musk took pains to basically nuke the account of someone who like posted the names of these guys who are scrubbing all this data and who are collecting all of it.
I thought he was free speech advocate.
I know, this is so on him.
Oh, I'm so shocked that the free speech crusader has seems to be a reputation and now a history, Francesca, of punishing, silencing, and censoring anyone on X who dares criticize him. This is almost like he's a hypocrite. It's almost as if they give cruelty and demand civility. It's almost as if they want safe spaces for themselves and no safe spaces for the rest of us. Am I losing
exactly right on a I mean, it's the irony, Waj, of him trying to protect the identity of these 6 engineers while they steal all of our data and our social security numbers and information. Because again, this is, if you ever had a tax return, they've got us on file. Hey, tax day is coming up. And you know, the other thing that he somehow nuked, direct file with the IRS. Elon said, no, we got rid of that. So is this true? Do we know? Are people going to try it? Direct file was a way to cut costs for American people who have to pay for TurboTax or a tax preparer every single year, something that the government should easily provide because the government knows how much you owe in taxes. The IRS knows. But of course, they want to defund the IRS. I digress. I mean,
but no, don't worry. The price of eggs are they're up, and don't worry. The price of gasoline is down. Oh, sorry, they're up, and don't worry. The price of groceries, nope, that's up too. And speaking about that TurboTax, I think it's real quick. It was such a blessing for Americans. We were so grateful that our country finally followed the lead of other countries and allowed us to file our taxes for free. And TurboTax and some other companies were overcharging because, like, hey, you got to file your taxes. You need to come to us.
Exactly.
So while you're paying for your eggs, folks, and your gasoline now, and you're worried about your Medicaid, if it's up to Elon Musk and he can delete the IRS, well, apparently save a couple of bucks for TurboTax and some other groups to file your taxes. You better start saving. Better start saving, Americans.
Yeah. Well, there's another department that Elon wants to gut and has been successful in doing that. Let's turn to USAID.
Why is it important for...
I'm sorry.
USAID, or What's going on there?
Well, it's been run by a bunch of radical lunatics, and we're getting them out. USAID, run by radical lunatics, and we're getting them out, and then we'll make a decision.
Mr. President,
So just as with the Treasury, Donald Trump and Elon Musk have effectively shut down USAID, again, which provides assistance to countries around the world through healthcare and human rights programs, educational programs, on and on and on. Workers were banned from entering the building on Monday. And this follows, what Elon, again, whatever Elon says, Elon gets. And he has called USAID a criminal organization. He also, as you just heard, Trump said it was run by radical lunatics, again, because these lunatics provide, disease fighting efforts against polio and malaria and HIV, radical things. Why not just get RFK Jr. to say, there's different strains of HIV and I'm okay with the ones that kill brown people. Oops. So they also, do things like fight famine. And I thought, Representative Ilhan Omar had a wonderful statement today talking about how she herself lived in a refugee camp for 4 years. USAID helped her survive and her family. And it was part and parcel of what America does globally that isn't the military, that isn't just us and our boots on people's necks. It is about providing services. It is what they call soft power, right? It's goodwill throughout the world. It's what in our, most hopeful moments, you imagine America to be. And
also, Francesca, I want to say that, yes, there's bloat in the government. Yes, there's waste. But guess what? With USAID, literally, ProPublica said that if you cut funding, people will die. Children will die in Sudan, in Gaza, in Ukraine. And also, in the absence of US aid, guess who steps in? China steps in. Russia steps in. So if we can't motivate you with, saving human lives, in the interest of US security and influence around the world, it is better for a USAID to exist and help people, because if not, like you saw China with Africa and Pakistan, it comes in and says, hey, we got money. We'll help build your infrastructure, right? But they know this and they don't care. And there's a recurring theme here. Can you tell us, the employees of USAID, are they sleeping well? What's happening with them, Francesca?
No, things are bad. According to Ken Klippenstein, at least 1,000 USAID staff had their .gov accounts and government furnished equipment deactivated, wiped overnight, no advanced communications. It includes colleagues deployed in active war zones in Ukraine and Gaza who rely on USG technology for safety. So again, putting people directly at risk. And the other thing that's important to know is how all this went down. And how much more classified info DOGE, because of course it's DOGE, has access to. According to sources, personnel from the Musk-created office first physically tried to enter USAID headquarters in D.C. and were stopped. The DOGE personnel demanded to be let in and threatened to call U.S. Marshals to be allowed access. The DOGE personnel wanted to gain access to USAID security systems, personnel files. Two of the sources also said DOGE personnel wanted to access classified information, which only those with security clearances and a specific need to know are able to access. Three sources told CNN that in the end, the DOGE personnel were eventually able to access headquarters. I just want to stop down and say it is wild that this coup is happening, and it like as you said, it's an administrative coup.
That's right.
But it is bloodless. They didn't go in with guns. They didn't go and hold people hostage, but they went in there and said, now we're boss. And our only defense was no.
Maybe.
And this is why we're in coup territory, because they threatened to call U.S. Marshals. But those U.S. Marshals, who are they beholden to? This government agency where people are actual federal employees, or a rando non-governmental agency with people without security clearance who are coming in and trying to access the data?
We don't even know if DOGE is a governmental agency, right? What's the status of DOGE? Is it a government agency? Is it an outside agency?
Well, these guys don't have security clearance no matter what. So that's the thing. It's we're and this is my problem with all of this, in addition to it happening, is Waj, didn't we know post Jan 6 that something like this could probably happen? And where
Yes.
is security to defend the workers?
We tried. Some of us tried our best. Hopefully, we have receipts, and hopefully, we can get like some props for ourselves. Maybe once in a while, when things are so depressing, Francesca, you and I could be like, "We tried our best to warn." But we have Taylor Lorenz coming up, folks, and she's going to break down the broligarchy and Elon Musk and the tech bros and what their plan is. She's coming up in 2 months. Excuse me, 2 minutes, not 2 months.
2 months. You're gonna have
This
to
will
wait.
happen when you don't sleep.
One
and you have to eat.
day we're gonna.
Yeah, she's coming up in 2 minutes. But first, it gets worse because now USAID, which was independent, is going to be absorbed by the State Department. Good old Marco Rubio. He had a chat with the coolest dictator in the world in El
So cool.
Salvador.
He's so hot.
Francesca, tell us about Bitcoin Boy, who wants to create Bitcoin City in El Salvador and had just a helpful suggestion for America about what to do with our criminals.
Oh God. I mean, you basically said it. It's deserving maybe of its own segment. But yes,
We have to mention it because this is real
Marco
life.
Rubio. Yeah, Marco Rubio was in El Salvador. So again, far away from, and when you say Marco Rubio is like the only ostensible adult in the room. So he at least stepped into the USAID kerfuffle and was like, oh, I'll run it. And so now he's and the State Department are sort of in control of it. He's passed the baton to another State Department official. We'll see how long that lasts, or whether they just sort of like, swallow it and, fart it out or whatever. But yeah, Nayib Bukele then made a very generous offer to the United States and said, hey, since you're deporting so many people, we'll house all your alleged criminals, obviously for a little bit of a fee. But Nayib Bukele has been kind of infamous for mass sweeps of neighborhoods where alleged gang activity is taking place, and folks who are in a gang, never were in a gang, just live in gang territory are being held in horrendous conditions that are no doubt birthing more gangs in El Salvador, like the dreaded MS-13. But, now the government, in addition to opening Gitmo to 30,000 undocumented, hey, Waj, we might just send them to El Salvador.
Not just undocumented. Christy Noem said she's okay with kids going there as well. And remember, Tom Homan, the border czar, said he's perfectly fine not separating families and taking citizen children. So we have that going. Yay, black sites in El Salvador. So if you're an American citizen, try your best not to be convicted of a crime and don't be a dangerous criminal, because you could go to the coolest dictator of the world who is willing to build black sites and house American citizens. Can't make this shit up. But you see a recurring theme here. Yeah. And before we bring Taylor on, we have some great reporting from David Thoreau's The Lever as to why Elon Musk would go after USAID. Now, some people thought, well, USAID was instrumental in helping tear down apartheid in South Africa. And as we know, apartheid Clyde, and we'll talk about a little bit later in the show, has some fond memories of growing up in South Africa during apartheid. But according to great reporting from The Lever magazine, we have the following. The Lever article says the agency USAID announced a probe of Elon Musk's company Starlink's terminals, according to pages that still remain on the agency's website. An archived 2022 USAID press release, now inaccessible, said the agency had delivered 5,000 of the terminals to the Ukrainian government, quote, through a public-private partnership with the American aerospace manufacturer SpaceX. If you've noticed another trend.
This is really tickling my little conspiracy theorist brain.
Well, wait, hey, listen, if you've noticed, again, the FAA chief who sued, the FAA chief, the FAA, of course, we found out Starlink, right, for safety violations. He was gone. And a top HR official at USAID was placed on, wait for it, administrative leave Thursday for trying to rescind a DOGE order purging career officials. On Saturday, 2 top security officials were also put on leave after trying to stop Musk allies from physically accessing USAID headquarters and personnel files, including classified information. Folks, this is a purge. This is a coup. And real quick, we promised you microdoses of hope. Here's a microdose of hope.
Wait.
Until a waiver was thrown together after the fact. Let me say that again. Prisoner guards overseeing.
Those were Democrats protesting.
Democrats are doing
protesting.
But why don't we, you know what? Why don't we let's bring Taylor in before and then talk about the Dems and their resistance in a little bit. Oh, Waj, I just wanted to make that. Welcome, Taylor. Waj is jumping the gun here all over the place.
I didn't bring her in, but that was like a flash cut. That was
I
like,
will
welcome
blame
to
you
the-
no
here.
matter what. Taylor, writer for User Magazine on Substack, author of Extremely Online, The Untold Story of Fame, Influence, Power. Also a new contributor to Zeteo with your column Network Effect. Welcome. I was just going to talk about how the Starlink stuff and it feels a little, Taylor, I know since you're terminally online, you can go with me on some conspiracy stuff here. I mean, you can't go with me, but I'm like, isn't the Starlink stuff some of the servers and some of the ways that like the votes were being tallied in the United States? Why is he doing this? I know Trump won the election, but like I've seen the conspiracies out there. Is he covering his tracks? Do you know what I mean, Waj? Like, why are we like that? That feels important.
Trump won the election, just to be clear. I do think that there's a lot of conspiracies out there, and I know it's hard for people to understand and grasp, and it is concerning. I mean, Elon Musk's like growing role in our federal government is deeply concerning, and it's obviously he's just interested in enriching himself and putting his sort of stuff out there. But there is no evidence of him like I don't think that's
I don't know about this
happening.
Starlink, but yes, but it is very questionable that like they would raid USAID because it was investigating Starlink in Ukraine. So there's something there we don't quite know yet.
Yeah, I saw that Lever reporting, and I think that makes sense. I mean, obviously, he has a personal vendetta against this agency, but we just don't know what the wrongdoing was. I don't doubt that he was involved in wrongdoing. That sounds par for the course, but we just don't know.
Yeah.
Taylor, can I ask you about how Elon Musk is specifically using Twitter, I hate to call it X, to further not just the misinformation, but also build up his brand and basically rationalize what I believe is his administrative coup, right? Like, he did the poll today talking about deleting the IRS and all these fanboys. You don't know if they're fanboys, you don't know if they're trolls or bots, but it's a hell site. How is he specifically using X and his purchase of X to effectuate what looks like a type of administrative control for himself and the broligarchy?
Yeah, I mean, I think Elon Musk has leveraged his online influence through X to push a variety of policies. I mean, he leveraged the entire app to get Trump elected and push pro-Trump messaging. So he's going to continue to do that where he has an enormous platform. Not only does he use his platform on the app, but he also uses the app and the algorithm itself to kind of push pro-Trump messaging and basically sort of normalize the ideology that he wants to push. I also think that he wants the entire government to rely on X. Like he's trying to kind of gut the digital services of the government and sort of replace them with X, which is ironic because X was actually a public utility that was not publicly owned, but it was something that like a lot of governments used actually to get their message out, right? And a lot of those same government agencies left Twitter when it rebranded to X because of Elon Musk's, pay for play verification scheme made it unreliable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this is like, we were talking earlier about, the rift in MAGA and sometimes I'm on Twitter and I'll like watch for it and but it's a lot of like FAFO, man, this is what you get. Like people really excited. And so I'm of two minds.
Try harder, lib. Sorry, I had to say that. I get it every day.
No, exactly. I'm just of two minds on like, I do feel like the 2024 election really was proof that actually, maybe Twitter was worth those $44 billion because of how he could weaponize it and how critical it was.
I think Ryan Mack at the time and some other reporters who covered Kate Condra as well, the New York Times writes about this. Both of them write about it in their book, Character Limit. But ultimately, this was a political project for Musk. And he did try and get out of that deal. I think he grossly overpaid for it when you look at it as a social platform. But when you look at it as sort of one of the main ways that you can control access to information and news, it was undeniably the most valuable platform for journalism and news and information, our information ecosystem. And so, to hand that over to Elon Musk and for him to blatantly use it to a political ends is terrifying. Also, because this is the type of election interference that we hauled Mark Zuckerberg in front of Congress for, back in 2017. And now Musk is just doing it in the open.
And you've been very critical of established media, traditional media. You've worked there before, and now you are free forever with your own Substack and now a contributor to Zeteo. And we've talked about this before. It's not just Elon Musk. Talk to us about the broligarchy and their role in this, specifically when it comes to media. Bezos with the Washington Post, the owner of the LA Times. I don't know if people have been following what's happening over there. Zuckerberg. How is this a part and parcel of billionaires and specifically media owners who are, I would say, complicit, Taylor, in the ascension of Musk and the broligarchy at the expense of our freedoms and freedom of speech?
Yeah, well, I think billionaires, especially these tech billionaires, they want authoritarian level control. They want to silence speech. For all Musk's talks about free speech, Musk is one of the worst offenders when it comes to censorship. I mean, Twitter is far more censorious today than it was under the previous owners. It's just that they're censoring not just left-wing content, they're censoring left, right, and center. Anyone that disagrees with Elon, anyone who says the wrong
Even
word.
Laura Loomer.
Yeah, they'll
Oh
censor.
God, yeah.
I mean, Musk has always been pro-censorship. Musk is funding, these political efforts to dismantle free speech. I will say the one thing that Democrats and Republicans seem to agree on these days is censoring speech. They just both want to censor it in the other way. And so you've seen the billionaires kind of as part of this effort to dismantle traditional media. In one sense, they're working to sort of legislatively dismantle free speech under the guise of cracking down on big tech, pushing things like the Kids Online Safety Act or the TikTok ban, things like that.
Yeah.
But then they're also funding this sort of fake alternative media ecosystem. Basically, they're giving these right-wing internet personalities, in some cases tens of millions of dollars, to push their messaging in these new media ecosystems as they're dismantling the traditional press. And that's very dangerous because I think independent media is essential and powerful. When you talk about holding power to account, we need an independent, strong independent press. But people like Barry Weiss and these other right-wing figures, they're not independent. These are billionaire-backed mouthpieces that ultimately exist to prop up institutional power.
Hey, Francesca, before you jump in, can I just remind folks that when it comes to the free press and Barry Weiss, when the New York Times did a profile, apparently they interviewed folks from the free press who said she gets all her talking points from David Sachs. David Sachs is the South African billionaire friend of Elon Musk, who is now the czar of AI and crypto. I just had to give that.
Also South African? What's up?
I know.
It's the PayPal.
Come on.
Oligarchy.
I mean, we have more to say about that in a little bit. I guess I'm like, Taylor, it's the first time we've ever spoken, and it's great to meet you. And I have so many questions that are relevant to this, but it's really about like how we build pressure in the other direction. I feel like hindsight is 2020, but it feels like the 4 years that Biden was in office were squandered in a lot of ways, and especially when it comes to the tech oligarchy and this window that we had that we tried through the FTC a little bit to rein in, and some of these lawsuits against, monopolistic practices. And you yourself were even part of an effort to combat disinformation from the federal level. And I feel like we've swung so far in the other direction that I'm concerned for independent creators and people like yourself who've consistently put themselves out there and been, doxxed and harassed and all the ways that you have, and yet you still keep going. I guess I'm just like, where do you see, is it broad boycott? Is it, getting off of these platforms? Where do you see sort of glimmers of what you think is like hope in this tech oligarchy we live under?
It's not coming from the Democrats. The Democrats continue, again, to push for these dangerous right-wing censorship bills, like COSA, like the TikTok ban, et cetera, like these sort of state bills aimed at, restricting access to speech and open information ecosystem. I mean, look, we do need to crack down on tech in smart ways. I don't see that happening under the Trump presidency. I would love to see things like comprehensive data privacy reform. I mean, any sort of more data privacy laws for all of the talk that these people say about, oh, China's getting our data, whatever. They do nothing to protect our data. We have literally no data privacy here. And, I think we can focus on trying to build less sort of capitalist platforms. Like there are things like Blue Sky and others. I think those are great to use. The problems with those platforms is that they're sort of inherently niche. The right has spent years building up their entire alternative media ecosystem and platform ecosystem. we don't have the money. Like anywhere left of center doesn't have the money. They don't have the funding. There's no like Democrat billionaires funding Democrat alternative media or alternative platforms that sort of value progressive speech. So you're really in a losing battle. It would just be so great if the Democrats didn't actively harm the independent media landscape and journalists, et cetera, by pushing for these sort of censorship.
Taylor, pivoting towards microdosing of hope and trying to fight back. About 2 months ago when Trump was elected, everyone was interviewing you and asking you, tell us about the young men taking over the YouTube, because it was Dana White, yes, the CEO of UFC, who was invited on election night to give a shout out from the stage. And he gave a shout out to Theo Von, the comedian with the YouTube show. He gave a shout out to the Nelk Boys, pranksters turned multi-million-dollar right-wing hacks, and people like Joe Rogan, who was also there at the inauguration. Like you mentioned, we don't have the money, we don't have the $1 billion in decades worth of investment, but how do the rest?
And we don't have the male fragility on our side.
Sure, but we do have. I mean, the problem is the Democratic establishment has refused to acknowledge the shifting media landscape forever, for decades now. And, it really bothers me, for instance, that Trump is out there putting this like new media seat and credentialing content creators. These are things that should have happened under Biden. They should have been courting this alternative media for many election cycles. This is how Trump came to power. I covered the 2016 election. I was at the Hilton the night that he won. The people at the Hilton there with me, because there weren't many reporters, they were all at the Javits Center, were a bunch of weird internet weirdos, posters, online figures. I mean, they had like YouTubers back then even that were so pro-Trump. So they've been courting this entire, they recognized the shifting media landscape. They seized control of our information networks. And if we want to get it back, we have to acknowledge those realities. And instead, Taylor, the Democrats have their head in the sand.
And I'm sorry, but we have to, look, we try to be fair on the show. If Democrats do something good, I'll give them props. When they F up, we'll drag them. It was also in the first administration. Do you remember when they had a summit for social media influencers? And Donald had all these freaks there. Don't you think Democrats should have learned then that maybe it's time? But we're like, so are you saying that we're pretty much 9 years behind, or are we like 30 years behind?
I mean, they're decades behind. I think the right-wing media ecosystem, first of all, it's a personality-driven media ecosystem, and it's been that way since 90s talk radio. So they were always sort of positioned well for the internet.
Yes.
But you also had people like Steve Bannon and others recognize the internet and the power of the internet very early and invest in building these networks and invest in relationship building. The Democrats continue to purity test all of these content creators. They blacklisted, let's not forget, there was a massive coalition of Gen Z TikTokers. Hundreds of the biggest Gen Z TikTokers came together in 2020 under the coalition Gen Z for Biden. And TikTok for Biden. They turned out record numbers of votes. Biden thanked them, said that their role in turning out the youth vote was essential. What did Biden do within a year of getting in office? Blacklisted all of them because they were pushing him on things like climate, basically pushing his climate policies, COVID, saying, hey, you didn't actually end the COVID pandemic, and then later pushed him on Gaza. So,
oh my God. Yeah.
And these are people, by the way, that they're Democrats. These are young Democrats. They don't want Trump in power, but you didn't say the right thing. You didn't toe the party line on some certain issues. So now you're not invited to the White House Christmas party and you're blacklisted from our events.
Exactly. Yeah. That purity is wild. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I will
say one other thing, which is that they revoked Hassan Piker's credentials on stream at the DNC. The one content creator that can reach young men, you took his credentials on stream. Delusional.
No. It's amazing. I mean, I didn't even get access, but I guess I wasn't big enough. But no, and the other thing that happened in 2020 was a massive uprising in, for Black lives. And what did Biden do in terms of criminal justice reform, police reform? Absolutely nothing. So again, this is exactly the disillusionment can be tracked there. And I also I think you're absolutely right. So I want to make fun of all the weirdos that are being let into the press gaggle, but it's really upsetting that it was only during election cycles the Democrats even paid attention to alternative media versus no, you guys will be the ones to be in the press room to either push back or to hear us, to let us, tell you about the Inflation Reduction Act or the good things we're doing or student loan debt relief. There was so many other ways that could have been helpful and that Trump and the right has been using it. And lastly, sorry, I don't know what you think about this, but like nonprofit structure is such that when getting grants for media is really difficult. So nonprofits and most foundations will not fund like a media venture. I know because I used to be part of a lefty magazine called Left Turn, shout out. But and it was really hard. They don't like that. They want more service-based work and whatnot. And so that was another thing, is that the foundation and the nonprofit industrial complex completely did not fund or overlooked the importance of having mouthpieces, but for good stuff.
Mm-hmm. There's no alternative. The entire alternative media ecosystem on the left is like, I mean, the other issue, as you mentioned, is that they're ideologically opposed to a lot of the Democratic Party's policies. And rather than adopt popular policies that play well with young people, things like healthcare, Medicare for all, of these other issues, right, that would really appeal to young people and to broad-based demographics that they always say they're trying to get, they are busy, chasing these, like, people like Liz Cheney, or I don't know, these weird, like, conservative people.
We must bear hug Liz Cheney, Taylor. Please.
It's just like young people, especially this election. I mean, so many people sat home during this election because they just didn't feel represented. And then they're scolded by Democrats online saying, you better vote for us or what? And it's like, that's just not a winning message. Whereas the Republicans, they will welcome people in. Trump will engage with
Unfortunately, 19 million people sat at home. Before we let you go, Taylor, we want to show you some clips of Democrats finally, maybe, fighting back, folks. Here are 2 clips.
Elon Musk, you didn't create U.S. aid. The United States Congress did for the American people. And just like the president, who is elected to something, cannot impound the money of the people, we don't have a 4th branch of government called Elon Musk. And that's going to become real clear.
Well, we also got this. Finally, Senator Schatz of Hawaii said that, you know what? If you continue with your administrative coup, I shall not vote for thy nominees. Something that I think Democrats should have done from the beginning. Francesca and Taylor, the final word on this before we move on to Reek of the Week.
Yeah.
It's nice that they're talking. They should stop voting for Trump's policies. And, I don't know.
I mean, the other thing, I mean, it's funny because we're like, oh, they need to get online, or they need to understand the power of social media and whatnot. And yet all they've been doing for a week now or 2 weeks has been tweeting, this is bad. So it's nice to see them like, no. That was 10 years ago. This is now. You need to get into the streets. And also you need to start blocking. And the thing is like, they can say like Schatz, Senator Schatz said he's going to, block all nominations and try to gum up the works. But today they just confirmed Energy Secretary Chris Wright. So, and 7 Democrats, I believe, joined with Republicans to do that. So it's like, you can't even get your own people in line.
Yeah. Taylor, final word?
I completely agree. They turn around and then they vote with they do not know how to wield political power, and they need to learn how to do that.
I always say Democrats bring an eraser to a knife fight and Republicans bring a bazooka. Who do you think is going to win 9 out of 10 times? Taylor, thank you so much for joining us. Our audience loved having you, hearing you. They love the fact that you're a contributor to Zeteo. Please shamelessly promote yourself. Where can people support you? How can people read you? How can people help you?
Yes, please go to usermag.co. That's usermag.co. It's my tech and online culture newsletter. I write a lot about politics, but also just general tech culture stuff. So if you want to keep up with what's going on the internet, subscribe to usermag.co.
Love
Thank you, Taylor. Thanks so much for joining us. And now, folks, the tradition that we have established on America Unhinged. This week's Reek of the Week, the first Reek of the Week, was Byron Donalds. Francesca was kind enough to let me inaugurate Reek of the Week because
I don't remember suggesting the second one though. Sorry.
Yeah, you did the second one. Which
but
was?
That was John Fetterman. I mean, every week is a John Fetterman Reek week. The most bent knee, the most subservient to the broligarchy and Donald Trump. But who did you pick out this week's was interesting. This
week's Reek of the Week is chosen by me. Who is the greatest cuck of them all? Donald Trump. He is the Reek to Elon Musk. Here are my receipts. Elon Musk via X says, I want to shut down this bipartisan government spending deal. Donald Trump says, sure. Elon Musk says, I love the H-1B visas, and anyone who's against me, especially if they're MAGA, they're, quote, a contemptible fool and a retard. And Donald Trump says, yes, I agree with you. Elon Musk says, fire the chief of FAA because he made me angry because apparently I wasn't safe enough with Starlink. Donald Trump said, who needs a chief of FAA? Do what you got to do, DOGE dude. Elon Musk says, I want to take my bros to Treasury Department and take over the financial data. Donald Trump says, hey, you know best. You gave me $300 million. I want to take out USAID. Who needs USAID? Hey, I'm a South African. You know what? I want to promote a white supremacist South African conspiracy that has been going along for the last 3 years, that apparently the South African government is oppressing the white folks. It's total BS. Elon Musk promoted it. Tucker Carlson promoted it. And guess who promoted it? Yesterday.
So you said that you were going to cut aid from South Africa. Will you plan to cut aid across other African nations, and why South Africa?
No, it's only South Africa. Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things. It's horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land. And actually, they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
But I don't know, because I wasn't briefed on those talking points. But you can ask Elon. He's on the plane.
And
he's actually up my ass, moving my mouth with his hand.
And speaking about apartheid, this is Elon Musk's father talking about his family's extensive history with Nazis and apartheid.
Her parents, by the way, were very fanatical in favor of apartheid. This is quite interesting. Her parents came to South Africa from Canada because they sympathized with the Afrikaner government. They used to support Hitler and all that sort of stuff. But they didn't know, obviously, I don't think they knew what the Nazis were doing. But they in Canada, they were in the German party in Canada. And they sympathized with the Germans.
Yeah.
So when the Afrikaners government came into power here in 1948, then May's father, who was quite an interesting guy, he was a very good pilot, he said he wants to be with the Afrikaners because he agrees with apartheid, you see.
He was a good pilot.
So he is talking, for context, about his Elon's maternal grandparents. So this was, I'm assuming, his ex-wife, because then he married his stepdaughter. Remember that? This is his ex-wife's parents. So I'm learning he just has white nationalists on both sides of the family. But I love the way this is his dad, kind of like he was part of the German party in Canada anyway. And the guy's like, oh, tight. Okay.
He was hella uncomfortable.
Like, yeah, right. This like black South African guy was like, wow. Like, I mean, it's also like he's got like a good guess. He doesn't want to ruin this interview. He doesn't want to make it weird. But yeah, so this is the craziest part. We just went from Donald saying, well, whatever Elon says in terms of the Treasury, whoever he wants to purge, he can purge, to, and by the way, white South Africans or certain classes are being severely mistreated. And you're like, wait a minute. You are Elon's little dude. You're his little bro. You're his little boy now. You're just echoing and parroting every single thing you heard from Elon Musk because your brain is half melted too. And so, whoever stuffs garbage into it last is the one who gets policy done.
But there is some pushback, and we promise to give you a microdose of hope. And in honor of Black History Month, and in honor of diversity, and in honor of Black women.
And badass women.
Badass women who lead the way. There is one woman in particular that we have raved about for the last 2 weeks. One woman in particular, Representative Jasmine Crockett, who has been on it, even though Democrats didn't vote for her to be the head of the communications, right? It was Debbie Dingle, and so far we're still waiting for a Dinglebanger. Jasmine Crockett has been out there doing the work, and we have a segment, Tell Us Something Good. And Francesca, I think Jasmine Crockett has been saying some good stuff. All right, play this clip. Let's play. There's 2 clips, but in the interest of time, we're going to play one.
We are not going to sit around while you go ahead and desecrate our Constitution, or you look at the laws that have been passed in into law and say, never mind, we'll just ignore that. Instead, we are going to be in your face, we are going to be on your asses, and we are going to make sure, you understand what democracy looks like.
We're gonna be on your asses, you know, and you gotta juxtapose that with Schumer going like, we will win, and you're just like, I believe only one of these people, and it's
Or
not
remember,
Chuck
was it
Schumer.
last week when he was like, the American people are aroused. They have been aroused. I'm not making this up, folks.
He said aroused like 8 times, and you're like,
And
"Please
everyone's
stop."
like, bro, stop. No, please.
But like, this is the energy we all need to bring, and I'm so glad Representative Crockett is bringing it. And there's a lot more we could, you know, everyone follow her, support her, because this is the kind of ferocity, this is the kind of attitude that is going to actually stop this coup from happening. But again, we will be bringing you more of it and more news on Thursday of this week, every Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for your super chats. Maybe we could read a couple before we our Georgia suburban homestead is very excited for what else Mehdi has planned. Well, everybody go to Zeteo.com because there's always some new interviews, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fallout, especially from the horrific comments about the U.S. taking over Gaza. So keep it locked. Thank you so much for all of your support. And Waj, where can people?
Please like, please subscribe, please share, please donate, please click the bell. And Francesca, please shamelessly promote yourself. Where can people find you?
I was going to ask you to promote. You can find me at youtube.com/FrannyFio for the Bituation Room, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Also, if you're in Los Angeles, I will be live doing stand-up comedy in my show called New World Disorder, February 19th at 7:30 p.m. at the Ice House. You can get tickets, FrancescaFiorentini.com.
And I write for the Left Hook Substack. No paywalls. Please subscribe. And I co-host Democracy-ish live every Monday and Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern with the fabulous Danielle Moody. And we will be back again Thursday, 8 p.m. live.
And until then, America, keep your screws tight. Bye-bye.